Okay, Game of Thrones fans. Episode 2, officially named the Knights of the Seven Kingdoms. I thought it was a great episode. It was still on the lighter side a little bit, and it got a little bit more morbid as it went along, but great transition into what is clearly going to be the fight for Winterfell in next episode. So, quick breakdown for you today, and then maybe some theories later on. So Jaime is in Winterfell. Fantastic. And he is immediately on trial for his life, and Daenerys being the judge. However, it looked like Sansa was more of a judge than Daenerys was, and didn't go unnoticed by Daenerys. You can see in this episode, throughout this entire episode, little things about Dany losing her grip on power, especially here in the north. And what was really great about this was, obviously the fact that it's Cersei's not coming up with her army, making Tyrion look like a fool and making her feel like she's made mistakes there. And then Sansa stepping in after taking Brienne's word, which is a great thing because Brienne, she clearly trusts Brienne with everything, with her life, even to a point where, she would free Jaime Lannister. So, with Brienne backing Jaime, clearly she's they have a special connection, and that special connection that was made during their bond with when their time with the Bloody Mummers. But what was really interesting, I thought, was Jaime, who's been chastised as the Oathbreaker, as a knight with no honor for stabbing the Mad King in the back. Actually proved even with his own words and actions, everything he did had a purpose, and he'd do it all over again, even the bad things, to protect his house, and that's honorable in itself. But even saving Brienne and arming her and charging her, he actually is an honorable. He actually is an honorable man. And the truth that we know is, the fact that he stabbed the Mad King to save all of King's Landing, and the 500,000 people that were in it. So, Jaime has done the full redemption circle. He's gone from the most hated for pushing Bran off to an actually, a more honorable man than most in Westeros. So that's an interesting sidebar, but. One of the things I also love with Bran, who has zero personality now, he loves reciting the past to people and just, giving them the gears, with the things that we do for love line, which, I think is actually a pretty big underlying theme throughout the entire series. It was a powerhouse line for a cliffhanger ending in the first episode. Let alone, it's the things that people have done for love across Essos and Westeros. It's kind of ridiculous, which is a highlight even more of the conversation that her and Daenerys and Sansa had later. It's like men will do stupid things for love. That the show definitely proves that. Tyrion being one of the biggest examples of, being one of the cleverest in terms of his brains, but always having weaknesses with his heart. So I think that's shown across a lot of other characters like Catelyn Stark, Theon as well. Although it was another organ that he led with rather than his heart. But I think now it's his heart that's guiding him. And I think there's a great sort of redemption story. He's back at Winterfell, and he is supporting the Starks as a Lovejoy, but he is truly being the man that Ned brought him up to be. So anyway, I'm getting a little off track here, but getting back to the point of Daenerys talking with Sansa, that was under the advice of Jorah Mormont, reaching out to Sansa with an olive branch and trying to make Tyrion feel important and included in that battle plan scene. I don't know, guys. I think when it comes down to it, Daenerys is showing signs of losing power, and she knows it. And I think that's like trapping a bear in the corner, or in this case, a dragon in the corner. It's going to lash out, and so that's what really, really disturbed me about when Jon tells Dany that the things that we do for love, he's given up his crown for love. He's done a number of stupid things for love, and he would do them again. But by the sounds of it, Dany may not give him the choice. And that's the thing that scares me, is that conversation was left off with, she wasn't saying like, oh my gosh, you're my nephew or something like that. Like, how can this be? It was, you're the heir to the throne. So she immediately sees it as that, and only that. And to me, she sees that as a threat to everything that she's worked for. And I think this is sort of finishing the arc of Daenerys being, going from the victim, so to speak, to the hero, to the moral high ground, to the mother of dragons, the unburnt, freer of slaves, to Daenerys the tyrant. Maybe, I think so. So if that's the case, sponsored by Tim Hortons, by the way. If that's the case, then we could see Daenerys being the final villain in this show, which I think would be one heck of an arc. But I also think that if Daenerys is going to be a villain in the show, then I feel like Sansa should be a villain in the show as well, because even her character has gone from the romantic, girl that had no interest in anything like this before, but is now forced to reckon with reality. And this is the result of what Game of Thrones does to a person, which is strips them of their soul, strips them of their heart, and those who retain their heart die, and those who don't live long enough to become the villain, so to speak. So I think that's a really interesting storyline there. But it wasn't my favorite part of the episode. My favorite part of the episode was the meeting of the new fellowship, shall we call it. And the only reason I say that is because the guy that does the music for Game of Thrones is also the same guy that did the score for Lord of the Rings. And you can actually hear a similar song, the song that Pod was singing, Journey of the Old Stones, which is a key point. I want you to Google that when you have a chance. I think it was Gray Area or Talking Thrones does a great take on that. Jenny of Old Stones, that's what that song is called. But anyway, it's the same music, the beginning of the same song. So it's the song that Pippin sings in Gondor's capital, in the hall, the Great Hall of Gondor's capital, to the Steward, while his Faramir is on his horse with a battalion running to galloping to their own deaths. He sings that song. It's a very similar song. But anyway, that's kind of it sets the tone. It's sort of that imminent death that's going to happen. They're walking into death, and in this case, it truly is death. It's White Walkers. So, but anyway, that meeting, I loved that meeting. I thought it was fantastic. It's Jaime and Tyrion rebonding. It's Brienne and Jaime having that special moment. Brienne becoming a knight of the Seven Kingdoms, which is the episode's title. Fantastic. It's, you know, I think we're starting to see a lot of they're wrapping up storylines, they're wrapping up character arcs, and Brienne, that was one of her biggest. She was never a knight, she was a woman, but one of the fiercest warriors out there and most honorable. And if there's anyone that should have been a knight, it's her. And it's awesome that Jaime could be the one to do it. But also, Pod and Tyrion coming back together, just joking like old times. It was really nice. But come on, best part of that whole thing was Tormund, no doubt. The story of suckling the wife of a giant he killed for 3 months was incredibly hilarious. But that seems to be his character's thing, is on the eve of battle, just like north of the Wall. He tells a utterly sick but funny story to anyone who would listen, and I think it gives him, or it gives it's a leader movie. It gives them something else to think about other than their imminent doom. So I thought that was a great scene. I think it may be the last time we may laugh with Tormund. I hope not, but we'll find out. Some final thoughts. I shouldn't say final thoughts. So that was my favorite scene. The battle plan. The battle plan that they have set out. And I found it interesting that Bran immediately is like, he's coming for me. He's coming for me. He's marked me. He will be coming for me. And so the battle plan is really to target the Night King, try and draw him to Bran and isolate him so that they can try and kill him. I don't think the Night King is there. I think, and I've read Mel, my wife, read an article that supports this. Because you never see him. You never see the Night King. You never see the dragon. You see the White Walkers. You see his generals. But here's the other biggest clue, that it's not storming. There's no snowstorm going on at Winterfell when the White Walkers arrive. And that's his thing. He brings the storm. Every time he shows up, it's a wicked blizzard that's going on. He brings the storm. So I don't think he's there. I think that maybe he's gone to the King's Landing. And he's gone to torch King's Landing. And fulfill that vision of Dany's and of Bran's, where the Red Keep and the throne room is the roof's blown off. It's ashes are raining down, or it's snow. I think that's what's going to happen, and I think that's an awesome move because there's so many little things that are pointing to a distraction move. And there's people marching to their deaths over here, but the real goal is over here. And I think that's really interesting. I think everyone thinks that they're going to raise the dead in the crypts. I think it's a possibility, but the Night King has to be there unless the White Walkers, the generals, have their own powers raising the dead, which I don't think they do. Then this is what's happening. So, and they said like the sole purpose in this battle plan scene, the sole purpose is to create the eternal long night and erase man from earth. And the best chance is to erase Bran, which is the living memory, which is a wonderful sentiment. It's true. There's plenty of philosophies that we all die twice. Our own deaths when our heart stops, but then our second death when the memory of us is erased. And so that's that. I think it's a really interesting line, but I don't think that's the true goal here. And I think this goes back to like the story, like who is the Night King and what does he want? And personally, I've got a few new theories about this. And I think we'll get into that in another segment. But okay, screw it. No, we're not going to get into it. We're going to do it right now. I think that the Night King is a Stark. So I read this. I heard this new theory from Gray Area online, and I thought this was a fantastic idea. The Night King is a Stark. He is an ancestral Stark. The Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, who's called the Night's King, who fell in love with a White Walker, and he was in charge of Night Castle many years ago. It's the idea is toyed with that he's a Stark, and he became a man of the Black, and then he fell in love with a White Walker woman. I don't know how that happens, but he did, and he becomes the Night King. So if that's the case, I think there's some kind of an ancient pact that's gone on between the Starks and the White Walkers. The Night King, the King of Winter, the Kings of Winter. That was what the Starks were formerly called many years ago. When the first men, they were the Kings of Winter. Everything in their house is related to ice or snow or something. The North, Winterfall. It's just there's so many connections, and there always has to be a Stark in Winterfell. That, I think, is alluding to the fact that there is a pact. There's got to be a pact, and that's why the Night King is going to Winterfell. He's going to fulfill some agreement that the Starks made with them God knows how long ago. And the fact that there always has to be a Stark in Winterfell means that they are fulfilling their end of the agreement by, I don't know, is it a sacrifice? Is it something in the crypts? Only a Stark would know. It's passed on generation from generation. Who knows? But I think it's really interesting that it's all kind of coming together at Winterfell, and it makes me think that the relationship between the Starks and the White Walkers, that the Night King's got to be a Stark. Maybe he is the Stark that's going back to Winterfell. Maybe he is the one that has it, because Bran's no longer Stark; he's Three-Eyed Raven. Jon's technically he's a half Stark, but he's a half Targaryen. Sansa and Arya are the only two remaining full Starks, and maybe that's the problem. I mean, this whole thing, this whole world is built around the idea that it's men are first and women are second, which is horrible, but it's old school. And could that be something? I don't know. It's food for thought. Final thought. Jorah and Sam. Now this is where I think it gets interesting. So the prince that was promised is Azor Ahai, Lightbringer. I believe I've told you about the sword's Heart's Bane, and the interesting connection with its name and the original story of Azor Ahai, who plunges his sword into the heart of his betrothed, beloved, maybe not betrothed, but beloved at least, Nissa, and the power of that love and her heart being Targaryen explodes the sword into fire, and becomes Lightbringer, and he becomes Azor Ahai, takes down the Night King of that day. So I think that's interesting. A man that loves Daenerys, probably more than anyone else that has ever loved Daenerys, is given a Valyrian steel sword named Heartsbane. I think there's maybe a connection there. it shows all about the things we do for love. Maybe it's the stupid things we do for love, the brave things we do for love. It's interesting. Normally, yeah, you don't usually say the smart things you do for love or the cowardly things you do for love. It's always one or the other, right? It's you're stupid and brave, and there's not much of a catch. I think that there may be something there for that. So my personal thought: Daenerys is going to kill Jon Snow. She's going to realize her mistake after the fact, when everyone turns on her for killing Jon Snow. And then it's going to be Jorah, who's the one that broke the law in the first place and was banned. And by the way, he was called cousin by Lady Mormont, the toughest bitch in Westeros, and she called him cousin at the end of it. He's been banned. He's been excommunicated from his own house, but she referred to him as cousin. So he's obviously earned his way back in somehow. And with his honor, with his justice as himself. But that's what I mean. Like he was on the broke the law, justice was served to him, and he ran from it. And I think now is the time that he's got to serve justice. But it's going to be Daenerys that's going to be like, you're absolutely right. She's going to sacrifice. She's going to put herself on the altar and say, like, you're absolutely right. I was the one that did this, and I shouldn't have. And so I think it may be Jorah. But a lot of theories, potential, because if Jorah becomes Azor Ahai, he takes out the Night King, that's pretty cool too. Anyway, enjoy the long night, and we'll see you in the future.